Heaven Official's Blessing. Chapter 118. Audio source: WuShoWorldAudiobook.com. Past the heavenly calamity, waves surge in the East Sea. Hey, I wasn't flattering you at all. We're all busy planting the fields, ain't no one saw anybody come by, that ox said. If that's the case, Pei Ming said, and made a step forward. Immediately all the farmers raised their pickaxes, shouting, "Trampled. He trampled it." Pei Ming frowned. Trampled what? You trampled the crops that they so painstakingly planted. You best apologize, that ox said. Pei Ming looked down and said patiently, "If I'm not mistaken, that's just some weeds." "No." That ox looked at him, puzzled. "A belligerent general like you, what would you know? Wouldn't us who plant the fields know better than you whether if it's weeds or crops?" Although Xie Lian could already tell the people of Yushi country were purposely picking on Pei Ming, but he too couldn't help but wonder whether if that was actually crops or grass. Pei Ming was the esteemed martial god of the north. Why would he apologize to a bunch of farmers for such a petty reason? He ignored them directly and took a few more steps, raising his voice and shouting, "Qingshan, come out. Your brother is currently going through his heavenly calamity right now and things aren't looking good. Something bad is going to happen." Qingshan had planned on hiding in the cottage at first since Pei Ming wouldn't break in anyway. Yet when he heard, he instantly opened the door and charged out. "What?" Pei Ming gave that ox a look. "I knew you'd come running here." Qingshan was startled but immediately snapped out, jumping back a step. "Why, you can't fool me. How can it have come so fast? That's too sudden. I thought it'd be at least another few months." Yet earlier at the heavenly court, the water master did indeed leave in a hurry like he was to take care of something important. Qingshan immediately brought 2 fingers to touch his temple. That was the hand seal for connecting to the spirit communication array. However, it was only when he raised his hand did he remember he had lost his powers. No time to be depressed. He immediately grabbed onto Xie Lian. "Your Highness, help me ask, is it true?" Xie Lian and Ming Yi both entered the spirit communication array, and sure enough, it was already as chaotic as a pot of stew, exceedingly worrisome. Most of the heavenly officials seemed to be overlooking the East Sea, muttering, "My heavens! This battle stance, as expected of the water tyrant. But will this pass successfully? The stronger the spiritual power, the more heavenly calamities a heavenly official passed, the more perilous the next heavenly calamity." Shi Wudu monopolized the waters, dominated the path of wealth, and this was also his 3rd heavenly calamity. How this trial would be was easy to imagine. "It's true," Xie Lian confirmed. That ox was still blocking the path and Pei Ming couldn't force himself through, so he called out from afar, "You're not a little child anymore. Who would lie to you about something like this? Passing a heavenly calamity isn't like planning a dinner out, you know. You'd think there's time for you to change into new robes before it happens. It comes as it wills without warning. He's currently above the East Sea, and the waves are surging. No one can enter and none can get out. He was just battling the waves when someone reported that you ran away, so how can he possibly focus on passing his trial? Then why don't you hurry and tell him I'm at Yushi country?" Qingshan responded. Xie Lian listened to the direct relay of the situation in the spirit communication array and said, "It's no use. That entire area where Lord Water Master is passing through trial is enveloped with a layer of wild spiritual power. He's probably in disarray right now. No one can reach him." Qingshan charged out. "Take me to him." Pei Ming extended his hand. "Come." However, Ming Yi suddenly flashed over, blocking Qingshan's way, his expression dark. "Ming Shang, what is it?" Qingshan asked. Ming Yi remained solemnly silent, but Xie Lian could probably guess what he was thinking and why he had to stop Qingshan. Was it really the right thing to do to help Shi Wudu pass his heavenly calamity? If the changing of fates was true, then the Water Master must receive punishment of equal gravity. Then, was it really appropriate to help him level up before looking into his due culpability? That he could guess this was also because Xie Lian himself was pondering the same question. Shi Qingshan hesitated for a moment, but in the end he exhaled a long breath. Ming Shang, thank you. But no matter what, I'm still worried, so let's just worry about passing this trial first. Then, he rushed to Pei Ming's side and turned his head back. Thank you, Your Highness. Thank you, Lord Rainmaster. Thank you, Ox. Thanks everyone. I'll repay this one day. Then the two hurried away. Ming Yi stayed where he was for a moment before following after them. Xie Lian watched their retreating backs but didn't move. Hua Cheng stepped out of the cottage leisurely. Gerger's not going. After some thought, Xie Lian still shook his head and said slowly, "This affair is beyond me, I can't help. Let's just see how they'll solve this themselves first." Shi Qingshan stood in the middle of it all, yet he still couldn't come around to realize what he should, so Xie Lian was also feeling a little awkward. Although Xie Lian could understand why Shi Wudu did what he did, Xie Lian still didn't agree with the method he employed. The ideal conclusion would be for Shi Wudu to admit to the crimes himself and go forward to receive punishment. Ming Yi probably also wanted the same thing, which was why he stopped Shi Qingshan. However, based on the Water Master's proud, domineering arrogance, that was most likely impossible. Having sat on such a high position for so many years, no one would want to come down willingly. If this was anyone else, Xie Lian would probably report this affair to the Heavenly Court immediately. But when he remembered the Wind Master's warm-hearted friendship, while his older brother was facing a dire situation, Xie Lian couldn't turn his back on Shi Qingshan and kick a person when they're already down, uncaring for past affections. Thus, the only thing he could do was to sit back and watch how they would take care of this themselves. However, if what they should end up doing was untoward, having thought this point, he turned to Hua Cheng with a bitter smile. "San Lang, your advice from before was probably right. Sigh, this whole thing." Hua Cheng smiled and was about to speak when Xie Lian's expression changed suddenly. Within the spirit communication array came Ling Wen's voice. "What? Hundreds of fishermen boats got dragged in? It had to be right now?" Xie Lian was instantly taken aback and responded anxiously. "Fishermen? Dragged in where?" "The East Sea." If it was said earlier that the communication was as chaotic as a pot of stew, then the stew was just toppled onto the ground and fed the dogs. There was no break in Ling Wen's responses and her voice was still considered collected. "Excuse me, which martial god is on duty?" "Old Pei." Pei Ming was in the spirit communication array and responded, "Don't worry. I've Qingshan with me and we're rushing over. Lord Earth Master is here too. You just figure out exactly how many hundreds of people got pulled into the storm so we can bring them all back. We'll try not to lose a single one." "Then thanks for your trouble," Ling Wen said. Lord Water Master blew out and magnified the spiritual arena, allowing no one to enter the perimeters of his trial. Any heavenly officials from the middle court would definitely be blown to smithereens if they try to go. The heavenly officials from the upper court can maybe try and break through the barrier. The number of people pulled in is probably over 200, so just you two might not be enough. We'll need another martial god. Which highness is present right now? General Nanyang. Generals on Gen? Someone responded. Weren't those two generals placed in confinement for destroying the heavenly court? They won't be able to heed the call. Then where's Taiwa? Has His Highness Taiwa returned? No. He's been sent out. Qi Ying. Who knows where he ran off to? He always blocks every communication and listens to no one. My lord, you already know this. Other than those few, there weren't any other martial gods that was worth the dime. Although anxious, Xie Lian still couldn't help but feel a little woeful. Was the aura of his scrap-collecting godhood so strong that everyone forgot he came from a martial god background? He responded hastily, I'm present. Let me go. It's just rescuing the fishermen in the East Sea, right? Your Highness, the winds and waves of the East Sea are raging right now. Your spiritual power only works at times. What if it's nothing? Xie Lian said. I fished in all 4 seas, and never once was it not storming. I've often drifted in the sea for over half a month at a time, so I'm very used to it. All the officials couldn't help but wonder, you've done that too? Just what else have you done? The situation was dire and didn't allow room for more thought, so Ling Wen acquiesced. Very well. Then thank you for the trouble. General Pei, coordinate yourselves. Very good. Pei Ming responded. Xie Lian closed the spirit communication array down and turned to Hua Cheng. San Lang, over at the East Sea. Unexpectedly, the moment he turned his head he saw Hua Cheng had already changed into a refreshing fisherman disguise. He tossed up the dice and caught them as they fell. His other hand was on the door and he said straightforwardly, "Let's go." Xie Lian was taken aback but soon smiled too and replied, "All right," and followed. When the door opened, what appeared wasn't the interior of a cottage but the expanse of a gloomy seashore. The two emerged from a small fisherman's shed on the beach, and that little shed was the most used connection point for the distance-shortening array on the East Sea. Beyond the beach was the boundless sea that stretched the ends of the horizon. The beach was gray not because the sand was gray, but because the skies were gray and the sea was gray too. Gloom pressed down, black clouds rolled, the malaise was oppressing and suffocating. From time to time a giant wave would surge in the distant sea, like a magnificent fortress wall rising from flat grounds, and it would soon collapse. There were also water pillars like dragons, roaring into the sky like a tornado, thrashing in wild, and they too would collapse once risen. Lightning crawled chillingly across the skies, twisted and savage. There was a large, brand new ship berthed by the beach. There was nowhere to perch upon the sea, and should they float in the air they just might get stricken by a lightning, so there need to be a boat. Naturally, this ship wasn't an ordinary ship. Shi Qingshan, Pei Ming, and Ming Yi were already on the ship, and the moment they saw Hua Cheng and Xie Lian exit the fisherman shed, Pei Ming called out, "Your Highness." Shi Qingshan only sighed. "Your Highness." Sigh. "Sorry for the trouble. I truly am." Xie Lian boarded the ship and said, "Duty calls. How does the ship go?" Pei Ming noticed behind him the Hua Cheng, who had his arms crossed looking quite at ease, and warned, "Those unrelated must leave. This tempest isn't a joke." The Hua Cheng right now was dressed in plain, patched clothes, yet it still couldn't hide away his handsome intelligence, appearing like a good-looking little fisherman. He laughed. "I'm not anyone unrelated, I'm only following my highness." Xie Lian said too, "He's from my palace." However, Pei Ming already flashed his sword, unrelenting and determined. "Stand down." Xie Lian hadn't yet responded, but Hua Cheng already answered with an abnormal determination. "No, I must go with you this time." Both sides were only in stalemate for a moment, but Shi Qingshan was impatient and turned to Pei Ming. "General Pei, this man is fine. Let's just go." Between their exchange, a frightening lightning struck down violently from the ends of the skies upon the surface of the sea. The lightning current coursed through the waters and crackled in light, turning the sea into an aqua color, like a giant heart suddenly started pulsating and breathing. The sight was impressive but at the same time terrifying. Pei Ming didn't want to wait any longer and shouted, "Start!" The ship gave a violent shake, and with the rumbling sounds of a round shaft turning, the ship started steering itself without any manual control and left the beach, driving deep into the sea with flying speed. Amidst flashing lightning and roaring thunders, the ship opened a path between crashing waves. The storm might be big, but Xie Lian, Hua Cheng, Pei Ming, and Ming Yi all stood steadily, and it was only with Ming Yi's support that Shi Qingshan hadn't fallen over. "It's tolerable right now, but how things are after will be hard to say," Pei Ming said. The ship was already going at an extremely fast pace, parting the waves into large splashes, yet Shi Qingshan still asked, "Can't this go any faster?" Running this ship burns spiritual powers. This is already the fastest it can go. Pei Ming replied. Shi Qingshan clenched his right fist. That hand used to hold the Wind Master fan, and with the winds of but one swing, it could have provided a tailwind, making the ship go at least 4 times faster. Yet now the hand was empty, and he couldn't help but exhale a long sigh. Just then, Hua Cheng tapped Xie Lian lightly, speaking in a low voice. Gurgur. Xie Lian whipped around and his eyes widened. Upon the sea about 30 meters out, there was a small fishing boat whirling in the waves, and there seemed to be a few figures crying for help, but their cries were all swallowed by the waves. The fisherman in distress. This was the reason why he was here. Rui flew out, wrapped those fishermen around the waist and pulled them up. When those fishermen's feet reached the platform of the ship, their legs almost gave out. However, Pei Ming immediately opened the door of one of the cabins and threw them in. When those fishermen opened the door again, they would have found themselves back on shore. Just as Hua Cheng and Xie Lian fished up 30 to 40 fishermen, the ship was also staggeringly reaching the center of tempest. At that very moment, there were plenty of heavenly officials overlooking this horrifying scene from afar, and there were surely many mortals who were in awe of the power of heaven. The lightning striking at the ship was increasing. This lightning was attracted to the source of spiritual power, and would pursue and strike at those with strong powers. Which was why one should stay far, far away when the other was passing through their heavenly calamity, lest they fall victim. Right now Shi Qingshan was mortal. Xie Lian's spiritual power was only enough for him to communicate through the array. Hua Cheng had no need to use his powers, so it was tucked away nicely, thus that lightning was focused on greeting Pei Ming alone. Many times he struck the lightning back bluntly with his sword, his blade easy. Such a show of skills, Xie Lian was quite impressed. If this was any other heavenly official from the middle court, not only would they be running away with lightning at their tails, they wouldn't be able to strike back either, which was why they couldn't be permitted to come. After crossing through the barrier, soon after, Shi Qingshan suddenly yelled, "Ge!" Xie Lian whipped his head up and sure enough, amidst 7 or 8 roaring water dragon pillars, he saw Shi Wudu with his white robes fluttering, hanging in the skies, his hands in the formation of a battle hand seal. Although his figure was still oppressing above the waves, he seemed to be unfocused, his imposing powers unsteady. Those frenzied water dragons would seize every chance to get closer time and time again, waiting for the opportune moment to devour him whole, and each time he only just dodged by a breadth. The ship was miles away from him, and if the Wind Master fan was still usable, then Shi Qingshan could have pushed the waves down by a notch, yet in his current mortal body, even his voice couldn't reach very far, and he could only watch in distress. The moment Pei Ming spoke, his voice was broadcasted powerfully and widely. Shui Shixiong. Qingshan is found. Just as the words left his lips, Shi Wudu opened his eyes. At the same time, another giant wave surged to the skies and crashed back down. The ship was thrown high into midair, but it didn't keep up with the speed of the collapsing waters, and it hung in the air for a brief second before falling rapidly. Xie Lian used the 1,000-pound spell to nail his form and grabbed hold tightly onto Hua Cheng's hand. Watch out! It was a funny feeling. Hua Cheng was clearly taller than him, and it took him no effort to hold Xie Lian up with one hand. Yet Xie Lian always felt that he was light as a feather, like if he didn't pay attention, Hua Cheng would disappear, so Xie Lian's grasp was firm and tight. Hua Cheng, too, clutched his hand back at the same time. On the other side, Pei Ming called out, "Shui Shixiong, focus. If you don't push the waves down, your little brother will drown before your eyes." Shi Wudu saw the ship in the distance and heard his words. Gloom flashed before his face, and his hand seal suddenly changed, erupting a spiritual barrier from around him. The water dragons that had been encircling him were suddenly struck, exploding into a deluge, crashing down soundly into the waters. The raindrops were like rocks banging against the deck, smacking against bodies painfully. However, after this was over, the storm had also slowed and calmed somewhat. Shiwudu slowly descended and landed on the ship. Everyone was already drenched from head to toe like drowned dogs. Shi Qingshan wiped his face and mumbled with trepidation. Ge. Shiwudu's face was still dark, and he strode over in large steps. I told you to stay put, but you had to go run around. If I die from anger, would you be happy then? Shi Qingshan really didn't know what to say to that. When he couldn't see his brother, he'd worry. Now that he'd seen him, he'd remember that whole business. Something in his heart just couldn't accept. Sigh, I'm only just. In the end, he scratched his head and sighed. As long as you've passed your trial, that's all that matters. I still think. Shiwudu cut him off. Who said my trial is over? Shi Qingshan was taken aback. Wasn't that it? With his hands, Pei Ming used all that water to slick back his hair. Don't be happy too soon. This is your brother's third heavenly calamity. It's not gonna be that easy. It'll take at least 7 days and 7 nights. The one just now was nothing more than the opening act. Truth to be told, even if it was the first heavenly calamity, it wouldn't be that easy either. Thinking back, the heavenly calamity that Shi Qingshan passed was greatly discounted compared to everyone else's. He must have come to that conclusion, and his face grew glum. Xie Lian was still concerned with the goal of this journey and asked in the spirit communication array. Ling Wen, we've entered the area where Lord Water Master is passing his heavenly calamity. Can you point us to where the fishermen who have been dragged into the storm are? Please wait a moment, Ling Wen replied. After a while, she said, this is troublesome. There are 261 fishermen who have been pulled into the perimeters of the heavenly calamity today, and they're overly scattered, all over the place. She didn't say much more before her voice was breaking up, and Xie Lian couldn't really hear her anymore. What's wrong? Ling Wen. He thought maybe his powers were used up again, yet when he looked up and saw Pei Ming's face, it was obvious he was experiencing the same thing. The group hadn't had time to talk when Xie Lian saw not far on the surface of the sea more broken little boats. Maybe the aftershocks of the opening round was too great and affected spiritual communication. It might get better in a bit. Ling Wen said there are 261 fishermen who have been scattered by the waves. Let's just save as many as we can. Naturally, no one objected. Pei Ming spoke up. Shui Shishang, why don't you go inside and rest for a bit? The trial has only just started. Who knows when more rounds will come? You're pretty unlucky this time, to have involved so many mortals. Shiwudu seemed to be somewhat tired indeed. He inclined his head, pushed open the door of another cabin and went inside to meditate. Shi Qingshan seemed to want to say something serious to him. But since the heavenly calamity wasn't over, it wasn't the right time to speak, so he could only swallow his words and unhappily go to the side with Mingyi. However, Shiwudu opened his eyes again and said sharply, don't go running around. Come and sit right here. And so Shi Qingshan could only kneel down next to Shiwudu. After more than half a day and the night deepened, the ship floated to a deeper part of the East Sea. Although the spiritual communication was still broken, working at times and not at others, it could still be used tentatively. In that time, Xie Lian and company had already rescued over 200 fishermen. At first, those fishermen went to sea to fish as always, but who knew such stormy winds and waves would surge so suddenly, and pulled them too far into the waters. If they were by themselves, there would have been no way they could drift back. If they should float about for several days and nights, they might very well all die from starvation or dehydration, dried under the sun into desiccated corpses. To suddenly be saved, it was truly to find hope at the brink of death, and they were all overjoyed. To just drift in the sea like this, who knows how many days and nights before all the fishermen could be rescued, and who knows when Shiwudu's third heavenly calamity would officially start. There could be danger at a moment's notice. Under such a situation, Pei Ming still acted the same. In the evening when they rescued a few fishermen girls, so scared their eyes were blurry from tears, he held them in his embrace and soothed them with gentle voices, a true show of honeyed romance, affectionate and charming. It was only after he charmed the girls before he sent them off to the cabin, and those girls were all reluctant to leave, hoping that when they opened the door once more he would still be there. Shiwudu had been meditating for a while now, his strength restored and his face looking much better. He opened his eyes. Don't you have high standards? Although the fishermen girls were in the peak of their youth, they were still only average, indeed nowhere close to the kind of targets Pei Ming used to hunt for. However, after having embraced women, his face was glowing and he rubbed his chin, laughing. After rescuing so many scraggly bearded old fishermen masters one after the other, any woman looks delectable in comparison. Ha! Hearing this, both Shi Qingshan and Ming Yi didn't want to look at him anymore. Xie Lian shook his head, actually finding it rather funny. Then he and Hua Cheng went to the side and sat down next to each other. A moment later, he suddenly felt emptiness in his stomach. Everyone else on the ship didn't need to eat. And although Shi Qingshan was immortal right now, but Xie Lian suspected Shiwudu must have given him some sort of holy pill, the kind that can fill a stomach for a few days, so even now Shi Qingshan didn't show any sign of hunger. This ship wasn't one built in the mortal realm, so it certainly wouldn't have rations prepared. Xie Lian was about to get up and go catch a couple fish in the sea when next to him, Hua Cheng passed over a thing. Xie Lian looked down and it was snow white and soft steamed bun. He sat back down and whispered, "Thank you, San Lang." Hua Cheng whispered back too. "Take this for now, Gurgur. It'll get better soon." The steamed bun was still split in half, and the two sat together munching slowly. On the other end of the ship, Pei Ming heard them whisper to each other, and he slicked his hair up again. "Have you two made some discoveries? Why don't you leave your little world and tell the rest of us?" Xie Lian was about to say something to put him off when suddenly he frowned. "Don't you all think there's something off?" Ming Yi frowned too and looked up. "Yes." Xie Lian rose to his feet. "This ship seemed to be going much slower. Is it running out of power?" "How can that be?" Pei Ming said. "The amount of spiritual power fueled in this ship should allow it to run 2 more days at sea." Xie Lian approached the side of the ship, his hands on the railing. "But I still think that this ship suddenly turned heavy." He abruptly stopped talking mid-sentence. Shiwudu and the others all gathered to the side of the ship. "What is it?" No need to ask. It was easy to see just by looking. Despite the darkened sky, it was still faintly visible that the draft of this ship's hull was suddenly abnormal, much higher than before. And the waterline was still climbing. Xie Lian immediately said, "Is the bottom of the ship leaking? Did we hit a shoal? Or is there something in the waters that chiseled a hole?" "That's impossible," Pei Ming exclaimed. "How would we not notice if we hit shoals? This ship isn't a typical ship either. Nothing normal should be able to chisel through, unless..." It was like he suddenly thought of something and choked. "Unless what?" Ming Yi asked. "Oh no," Pei Ming said. "What? Oh no?" Shi Qingshan demanded. Pei Ming whipped around and said, "When ships enter the lair of demons they shall sink. We've drifted to the Black Water Ghost Lair." End chapter.